Welcome to Deathly Honest, the podcast where we get real about the parts of life we often avoid: aging, death, and grief. Here, we strip away the cliches, drop the euphemisms, and dive into the truths most people keep at arm's length. This isn't just a place for somber reflections. It's a raw, profound, and sometimes darkly humorous exploration of the journey we all face. Whether it's tackling the messy emotions that come with loss, confronting the fears around mortality, or finding a laugh in life's most challenging transitions, Deathly Honest is here to make these conversations easier, one episode at a time. So grab your favorite beverage, a box of tissues, and your most beloved comfort item, and let's get deathly honest together. Hi everyone, welcome to Deathly Honest. I'm Kelli Lyles. I've realized I don't really introduce myself at the beginning of most of my podcast episodes because I have an intro at the very beginning and just don't think about it. And so I'm introducing myself very quickly. I'm a certified counselor specializing primarily in grief, but sort of everything, because I feel like everything we go through has a grief component. And I'm a certified death midwife. I certified so long ago that was the title. Now it would be more of a death doula. And a gerontologist. So my master's degree is in gerontology, which is the study of aging. And I'm doing this podcast primarily to share things that we don't talk a lot about. I mean, I know there's other podcasts out there talking about grief, and that's fantastic. I guess I don't think there's ever going to be enough voices talking about grief. So I've done several episodes just talking about different kinds of grief that show up in our lives. And today I've really been wanting to do this episode for the past couple of weeks because I've really been feeling the change in the season. I don't know where you are. I am in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, and it's the end of August, and I can feel fall. I think a lot of us out here in the Pacific Northwest start to feel it this time of year. Even though we had record heat this week, I can still feel fall in the air. The days are getting shorter. I don't know. There's just something about the feeling that comes with, for me, the end of August, the beginning of September. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about seasonal grief. And that's not just about the changing of the seasons, although we are going to talk about that, but how our body holds on to different experiences that we have and how they can show up in different ways as that time of year repeats itself. So I am going to start with fall, autumn. It is what I call the season of death. Who doesn't love that? It's a time where things are starting to slow down. The leaves on trees are starting to die. Nature is starting to prepare for winter. I'm that girl that if you lived in my neighborhood, you would be like, oh, she's the one that feeds the squirrels. I do. I feed the squirrels. I feed the birds. Don't judge me, but I feed the occasional raccoon because I love nature. And I can see right now the squirrels starting to prep for winter, where over the course of the summer, they will just eat their food more, and now they're doing more, taking their food and burying it. I apologize for my voice. I am just getting over COVID. I had 2 weeks of COVID, so fun, summer COVID. So I apologize, as I am going to clear my throat probably more than I normally would like to. And I don't edit these podcasts, you guys, so there's the possibility that I might cough in here. So just giving you a heads up. And I'm recording this. Let's see, what time is it? It's :13 in the evening on a Wednesday night. and I am at an Airbnb in the country, and the sun just set, and it's quiet. And after just getting over being sick for 2 weeks, this just feels heavenly. I'm here at this Airbnb because my son, my youngest son, is getting his wisdom teeth pulled tomorrow, and so I'm here to take care of him, which, let's be honest, I don't want him to have his wisdom teeth pulled, and I'm not looking forward to him being in pain at all, but I am also looking forward to taking care of him, which we kind of talked about in the last episode. So back to fall. This is a season where statistically a lot of people die. I'm not saying they don't die all year long, but there is something powerful about this season where I hear a lot of people having people in their lives die in fall. Both my parents died in the month of October. So for me, fall brings a lot of feelings. It's a warm, cozy season, and yet for me, it brings up feelings of back to school, and I was never a big fan of back to school. It brings up shorter days, for sure, which are very difficult for me. I still don't understand why we can't just have it be light until 10 o'clock all year long. It can rain, it can snow, it can do all the things, but why can't it just be light? I do understand the way the planets move. I just philosophically do not understand why we just can't have daylight until 10 o'clock. Again, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and so by midwinter, it's dark by 4 o'clock. And for me, I also can't drive in the dark because I was born with no depth perception, and that has become a problem the older I have become. And so the recommendation was simply probably not driving after dark anymore. So when someone tells you can't drive after dark and it gets dark at 4 p.m., it feels very limiting and very isolating. And so I can feel that coming. This year I've tried something new with my schedule because I can't come in the evenings. So last year I just adjusted at the last minute when I found out I really shouldn't drive in the dark. And I didn't like what I did last year. It didn't really serve me. And so this year I'm doing something different, which seems kind of exciting. I'm adding different days in. I'm going to work a little differently. And that gives me a little bit of excitement about what this looks like over the fall and winter for my schedule, for myself, and for my clients. There's something a little extra in that for me, which I kind of need right now as my brain is preparing for the long, darker days. And that brings me some pretty significant grief as summer comes to an end. I'm not a hot weather fan. I'm not a girl that wants to be out in the sun and the heat, but I like the long days. Really, really like the long days. I love when it's light at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's still light at 9 o'clock at night. Makes me so happy. And that doesn't last for very long. And it's, like I said, it's 8:17 and the sun has set out here and I'm watching it fade away, and the last dusk fade away, and it brings me feelings. And the other thing I feel in fall is I was 8.5 months pregnant with my first son at this time of year, 27 years ago. He was born September 21st, and on the first day of fall, sometimes it's the last day of summer, but it's often the first day of fall, and I remember being pregnant this time of year. I had chosen to become a stay-at-home mom, and so I had quit my job at the end of August, and I was home and just anticipating this enormous change that was coming in my life. And that's another part of seasonal grief, is this idea of our body remembers these things. My body remembers being pregnant at this time of year. And for me, every time my kids' birthdays come up, I experience a nostalgia. I don't know if it's grief necessarily, but it is nostalgia. And there is a piece of grief and nostalgia. I have big feelings around my kids' birthdays. Those were for my children that I birthed, those were the two most powerful days of my life. And the two greatest days of my life. I've had a lot of great days, but they were two of the greatest days. And it's odd for me that it's been 27 years this year. I don't get it. I think we talked about it in the last episode. And that part brings with it some grief. I love every age of my children, and I also miss all the other ages. And we can't have them back. That's not the way it works. So here for me, I've got this seasonal grief of fall and the endings. And I've got the seasonal sort of body grief of remembering what it was like to be pregnant at this time of year. And for those of you who have had your own children, you probably remember what it was like right before you had your first child. And I used to teach childbirth classes, and I would often tell people, probably every class, remember this. Your life will never be the same again. And it's true. That period of time right before you have your first baby is magic. And so there is this part of me that remembers the magic of this time of year. And there's nostalgia over it because I never felt that kind of magic ever again. You can't experience the birth of your first child more than once. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but even if your first child does not survive, there's just never a way to experience that first pregnancy the same way. There's some big grief talk in there. I'm not going to go fully into all of that. We will have a conversation about pregnancy loss at some point because that is a very big, important discussion to me. So also with fall, for me, comes the grief of October being the month that both my parents died, which I still find fascinating. My mom died October 13th, 2009, so it will be 16 years this year. My dad died October 24th, 2015, so it will be 10 years this year. And it's weird to say that out loud. It's weird to hear myself say that my parents have been gone for 16 and 10 years. 16 years I've lived without my mother. And I remember this time of year 16 years ago, as fall was starting to make itself known, and my mom was actually feeling really well in in August. And we were really happy about the summer she got because my mom had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer in March of 2009 and was told she had about 3 months to live. And she lived 7. So come August, we were all feeling like, wow, we were given a gift of a summer that we didn't know we were going to get. I didn't know what September was going to look like for us and what October was going to look like for us. I didn't know it in my thinking brain, but I think I knew it in my soul. We were being told my mother had stage 4 cancer. This wasn't going to get better. we were all kind of hoping that she was going to make it through another Christmas. But things turned at the end of September. And I can feel that stuff in my bones. So my mom, having had ovarian cancer, one of the things she had to have done periodically was have fluid drained out of her abdomen. And they would drain about 6 liters of fluid. And so I was driving up and down I-5 to go to the doctor's appointments with my mom to have that done. And I remember how much I was surviving on pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin loaf from Starbucks. I would get one of each in the morning, and then sometimes I'd grab one for lunch, and sometimes I'd grab one for dinner. And one day I remember looking and going, oh my gosh, there's so many calories in this pumpkin loaf. But that's how I was surviving. I've always been a pumpkin fan. My mom craved pumpkin when she was pregnant with me, and so pumpkin is very soothing to me, and that's how I was surviving. However, ever since then, when Starbucks brings back their pumpkin spice, I have feelings about it, and it came back yesterday. And I'm not a big Starbucks girl, but I live in Starbucks land. And I do occasionally stop for a decaf coffee if I've got a long day at work ahead of me. I don't drink caffeine anymore, but I do love the taste of coffee. And so I know when Starbucks brings back their pumpkin spice, their fall menu. And it brings with it feelings of, oh yeah, you remember the pumpkin loaf? I ate a lot of it. And my body, when I bite into a bite of that pumpkin loaf, it's like I've been taken back 16 years. So it's this body grief that I think really ties into seasonal grief. And so for me, when I joke often that, I think I said this in a previous podcast episode too, that I could be at the bottom of a well somewhere and I would know it was almost October, or I would know when it was October. I feel October in my bones. It is a deep core feeling because so much happened in October for me. My mom started getting sick again at the end of September, and then her cancer progressed very quickly from there. And so the first 2 weeks of October were very complicated, very difficult, very painful, as she very quickly started to fade away. My dad, we took my dad to the hospital on October 3rd. I can still remember these things, you guys. We took him to the hospital on October 3rd because the assisted living where he lived was concerned about him. He seemed very confused. He was not sitting up straight. And so we thought, well, he's got another UTI. So we get him to the hospital, and after some testing, a doctor came in and looked at me and he said, your dad's in full kidney failure. Does he have a DNR? And he said it just like that in one sentence. Your dad is in full kidney failure. Does he have a DNR? And that moment was, oh my God, everything's changing. And 21 days later, so 3 weeks later, he was dead. So that was all of my October in 2015. And I remember talking to some of the nurses at his assisted living, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if he dies on the 13th? Is that even a thing, that both your parents could die on the same day of the month? But it didn't need to be, because the fact that he died in October just makes October incredibly complicated for me. And I go year by year. Some most of the time I try not to work on the anniversaries of my parents' deaths because I don't know what's going to happen in my body those days. I can tell you right now on August 27th that I think I'm going to be fine this year. I'm not working on the anniversary of my mom's death. I don't think I am on the anniversary of my dad's either, but I do have a procedure on my mom's death anniversary, and I think that's fine. But ask me again on October 13th. I don't know if that will still be true. And a couple of funny things have happened in the last couple of weeks where we had a light bulb go out in our bathroom. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I have any more of those particular light bulbs. It's one of those old light bulbs with the round bulbs that someday I'll change out. But I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I have any more of those bulbs. And so I went downstairs and I went into our cabinet with all the light bulbs, and I thought to myself, oh yeah, these are still the light bulbs that I took from Mom and Dad's house when I moved my dad to assisted living, which would have been, I think, 2013, 2012, maybe it's 2012. My dad would stock up on things. My dad was really good at stocking up on things. And I'm still using the light bulbs that he had in the house and I took in 2012. It's 2025. And I had this moment of, oh, thanks, Dad. And then when I left today, I was packing up yesterday, and I am still a little stuffy and I have a little bit of phlegm from COVID. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to bring a couple of packs of Kleenex, the little small individual packs of Kleenex. And I thought, do I still have some of those? And sure enough, I do. Those also came from my dad, because my dad had Parkinson's, and often with Parkinson's, my dad was often needing Kleenex with him. And so I would buy him about 3 of those packs every time I'd go to the grocery store and get him groceries. And so he had dozens of packs of Kleenex. And when he died, one of the things we did was give them away at his memorial service, because I had dozens of them, along with dozens and dozens of packs of gum. And so we put them out sort of as, for lack of a better term, party favors at my mom or my dad's memorial service. But I still had so many of those packs of Kleenex. And here we are 10 years later, and I've got 3 of them in my luggage. And it was this moment of both those things happened within days of each other. And I just thought to myself, it's been 10 years. These light bulbs were in my mom and dad's house before my dad moved out, before my dad moved into assisted living. These Kleenex were in my dad's apartment at assisted living when he was alive. And now there's a light bulb in my bathroom shining brightly years and years and years after my dad has been gone. And I'm having some feelings about that. And so all that ties back into just this idea of seasons, and again, it's just not seasons. It's not fall, winter, spring, summer. It's seasons in our own life. I also have a grief response around my own birthday, because my birthday, the day I was born, I believe was rather traumatic. It was traumatic for me. It was traumatic for my mother. And I still have feelings about that. And years ago, I had a moment of going, oh my gosh, yeah, my day of birth had to have been incredibly traumatic for little baby Kelli. And I feel that, in my bones, and I have felt that in my bones my entire life. And if you have a traumatic birth story that you know about yourself, do you know how you were born? Have you heard that story? I'm not going to get all the way into my story because the one thing I don't want to do, at least not right now, is throw my mom under the bus. But my mom didn't want to be a mother. That was not part of her life plan. And she became one. And when you have to become a mother, when you don't want to, it's traumatic for you and for your baby. So that day was traumatic, I am certain, for me. And when I look back at all of my birthdays, a lot of weird stuff has happened around my birthdays for me. And I really do think now that that is just body grief. And so I'm really kind to myself on my birthdays now. I really allow myself to go, yeah, your body's remembering something. Let it remember it. And it's the same thing about my children's births. The anniversary of my parents' deaths. I think that's kind of an obvious one. People are like, well, of course you remember things about the anniversary of your parents' death. And, but there's also grief around happy things. I mean, the day my children were born were happy days for me. And my body still remembers what an enormous experience that was. And like we talked about in the last episode, birth's the beginning of letting go. It's the beginning of grieving, letting your children go. And I think every birthday they have, I'm so excited for each birthday. And I still want to make my children's birthdays amazing. But they're adults now and they have their own lives too. And they don't always need their mom to make their birthday amazing. And I desperately want to. So all of that has been stirring up for me in these last couple of weeks, maybe because I had COVID. But I do think there is a component of just feeling in my bones right now. The end of August is complicated. And I can feel it in the weather. I can feel it in the air. I can see it in the animals. I can see it in the trees. And I feel it really deeply. And I am definitely someone who feels deeply. So I'm sure there are people out there who are like, okay, this is a lot. But if you are also someone who feels it this way, I do want you to be able to honor it. Because I think it's important to be able to stop occasionally and go, okay, I'm feeling some grief in the air, in your body. I think we feel it a lot. I do believe that fall brings a unique kind of grief. If we didn't live in the highly technological society we live in now, and it was many, many years ago, this is the time when people are starting to, harvest season's over. You're planting for next season at this point. You're getting ready for winter where you slow down and you stop and you don't have to work as much and you enjoy the work you've done the last 9 months. And this is a season of slowing down. We live in a society that does not let us slow down in fall. It's when things get crazier for people who have children, right? School starting and all the activities at school. And we are designed intrinsically to want to slow down. We're designed to want to go to sleep when the sun goes down. And we don't have a society that allows for that. In fact, it's pitch black now outside. It's 8:38 and I'm not going to sleep yet. but I can feel like it's 8:38. A month ago, it was still light outside right now. And we are supposed to be slowing down. And so maybe that's where this message ends today, is to honor this time and perhaps allow yourself to slow down, even when society's not really giving you an option to do that, to be able to find ways to do it. For instance, I'm in my Airbnb. I took a walk around the grounds today. This Airbnb is beautiful. It's on 2.5 acres. It's in the country. And they just tell you to go walk the property. And I just slowed down. I don't think I slowed down when I had COVID. I think that the whole time I had COVID, I was trying to not have COVID. And this feels like the first opportunity for me to really just slow down. Tomorrow, my son gets his wisdom teeth pulled. And so there will be stress and anxiety around that. And so tonight, I just want to honor all the feelings that have been happening in my body and honor this season, the feelings, all of it. So perhaps you're doing the same thing. Perhaps you've never even thought about that, oh, this time of year maybe does make me feel that way. Or perhaps you've always known that. And this is just a reminder that it's okay to slow down. So that's my seasonal grief talk for today. As you know, if you've listened to any of these episodes, I'm just winging it. And I just start talking. I have an idea of what I want to talk about, and I don't know where it's going to take me. So that's where it took me today as we start getting ready for fall. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, perhaps you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're like, ooh, I'm getting ready for longer days. Believe me, I think about that. I think about the fact that people in Australia and New Zealand right now are getting ready for spring to come. And that gives me some joy because I know the Southern Hemisphere is going into spring. And that's exciting. And if I really wanted to, I could fly to spring. I could fly to some summer. I don't. I do like living in an environment where I get 4 seasons, even though I'm not the biggest fan of all the seasons. And I do say every year that I am not a fan. Mostly I say November through February. I can lump October in there, but October is unique in the amount of energy and feelings I have. But I really don't like that I say that I hate November through February. It's awful to wish away 4 months of the year every year. And so this year I'm going to try a little harder to figure out how to find some joy November through February. Now, I'm lucky I have a kid who has a January birthday, so that is helpful. The holidays do bring me some, I mean, that's not true. I was going to say they bring me some joy. I'm not a big holiday fan. And maybe that's another episode because I think I have a lot of holiday grief. But I get to see my kids, and that always brings me joy. So I can find some joy in those months, but it's forced. It feels very forced. And so this year I'm just going to be curious and see if I can look at those months a little differently. But first, I have to get through this transition to fall. So we're going to do one at a time. So there may be a future episode about holiday grief. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. And I do appreciate, I've had people let me know that they have listened to the podcast and that they really enjoy it and that they got something out of it. And that means the world to me, you guys. It really does. Because I'm sitting here alone in my Airbnb talking to my computer. But I envision people listening to this. And I do hope people are getting something out of it, if only to feel like, okay, she's saying some things that I feel And maybe I haven't been able to put my own words to it, or I have, but she's echoing them. And it's simply that idea of being seen. And I just feel strongly that we need to talk about all the different kinds of grief that we often are facing day after day. And there's so many more. But we'll just take this one podcast episode at a time. So if you happen to be somebody who is in a really active grief period in your life for whatever reason, if you hop on over to my YouTube page, I do have free restorative and yin yoga practices for grief. They're lengthy, but you could just do one pose out of them. The restorative practices, we're really only holding, I think, 4 to 6 poses in an hour because restorative yoga is staying in a pose for a long time. But they're specifically designed for grief. So I like to have something to offer people when you perhaps are struggling with whatever kind of grief you might be going through. And I'm a big fan of sort of the somatic therapy of yoga and how healing it can be. But you can do you. It's just another offering for you. So I'll be back with another episode, potentially about holiday grief, but maybe something before that. I don't know. There may be an episode during October as I process through the anniversaries of my parents' deaths. Maybe. We'll see. I just do these episodes when it feels as though I'm called to do them, as woo-woo as that sounds. So I hope that all of you are feeling whatever feelings are coming with the changing of seasons, whatever season you may be changing into right now. We've got about 3 weeks for the equinox, and always love comments. You can comment here. You can make a comment on Instagram. You can email me. You can do whatever you want. You can, if you've, are somebody that knows me, you can text me, all that kind of stuff. Or you can say nothing and just experience this and go on with your day. However it serves you. So I wish you all the best available end to August and walk towards the equinox, and we'll catch up again soon. Take good care.